Welcome to the Teamwork Advantage podcast with Greg Gregory. Join us as Greg interviews powerful thought leaders and successful team and leadership experts from across the country on teamwork, leadership, and organizational culture. Now let's check in for this week's episode.
Welcome to the Teamwork Advantage. I am Greg Gregory, and we're fortunate to have with us a friend of mine today, Nate Brown. Wow, Nate, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you, Greg. Thank you so much for having me on today. I've been very excited for this one.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have a little fun today because Nate and I haven't seen each other in a little while. Between the pandemic and conferences, and our paths used to cross at least twice a year, sometimes three times. And lately we haven't crossed at all. So it's good to see you again. Glad to see you're still sporting the hat, the beard, and the very mild colored shirt, as I would say.
It's the only way I know.
Only listening right now, you really should pop in to see the video version of this. So it's kind of cool, Nate. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks to Veronica Rose, the support director at WB Games, for this amazing shirt. It was quite the gift.
Oh, so Nate, I want to get started. Let me just do a little introduction for those folks who may not be familiar with you. Nate and I share one common thing. We're both perpetual students. We were just talking offline. And of course, I said that I love to learn, but I hated school. And I think, Nate, I think you kind of like school and still love to learn. So it all works both ways for you there. Nate is a perpetual student of the world's greatest experience. And that is people who, and with the people who create them. Having spent the first decade of his career managing a complex technical support environment for occupational health and e-learning software, Nate transitioned to customer experience in 2015. Now, when you talk about customer experience, Nate is one of the leaders in the industry in all of that. After authoring the CX Primer, Nate has also been dubbed as the CX Influencer of the Year by CloudCherry in 2019 and a top global customer experience leader by organizations including ICMI, SurveySensum, and LitmusWorld. As a passion project, just on the side, Nate created the CX Accelerator, a first-class virtual community for customer experience professionals. And let's face it, with the pandemic, the virtual is the buzzword for the last 18 to 24 months. Currently, Nate serves as the Chief Experience Officer for Officium Labs, and can be found at a variety of conferences speaking and training on the customer experience topics he absolutely loves. Wow. Nate, great background. Again, welcome to the Teamwork Advantage. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the bio there. It's flattering words. And yeah, it's been a great ride these past few years. You know, I've definitely been learning a lot, especially these past 2 years through Officium Labs and the great clients that we get to serve there. So I just love this world of customer experience. You know, I feel like life is made up of experiences, and we might as well make them incredible.
Right. I mean, the experiences are absolutely there, and the way things tend to build around them. You know, let's start with this. Why is the customer experience, and there is a difference between customer service and customer experience. Would you agree?
For sure. It's very different.
So let's go ahead and talk about the difference between customer service and customer experience in your eyes.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about customer service, which is definitely a part of customer experience, it's going to generally, especially traditionally, be where something was broken and now you have to fix it. It's that moment in time where the experience has been compromised to some degree, and now it's time to come in and restore the experience design. So CX is the thoughts and perceptions that we have towards an organization. That's a paraphrased Forrester definition there. So it's feelings, it's perceptions, it's very subjective, it's very artistic in a lot of ways, but there's so much science in there as well. And so the overall thoughts and perceptions that somebody have, it's going to be made up of these different critical touch points. And one of those is likely to be a customer service experience. But customer service is here, CX is here. And so we want to make sure that we think about those a little differently.
And again, for those who are listening right now, the customer experience is an overarching umbrella, if you will. Is that a good way to look at that?
It is an umbrella, yes.
And that's so critical to recognize. And again, the experience talks about the feelings that people have when they have an interaction with your organization. And so that's absolutely key. So tell me, Nate, where does this come from for you? Where does this love of customer experience come from? So walk us through, you started off working years ago in the areas that we talked about in the bio, but let's talk a little bit about how you got to where you are.
Yeah. So I was attempting to sell postage meters on the streets of Jacksonville, Florida, and realized a few things about myself. Wasn't a very good salesperson, and loved serving people. Those that had the postage meter, I could come in and expand that relationship and just love on them in any way that I could, in terms of making sure that they were very happy and satisfied with the partnership there. I loved that. And so the next role that I pursued as I moved to Nashville was in customer service, and made a career out of that, 10, 12 years in that customer service realm, mostly inside of Peer Safety, what later became UL, Underwriters Laboratories, and was able to grow into a leadership position, had 3 different teams that comprised the support department, and learned so much through that cycle, but did at some point just become the feeling like a victim of the fact that so much stuff was rolling downhill into the customer service environment. And we weren't at that time being proactive to think about, how can we try to avoid or mitigate some of these issues? How can we think bigger in terms of the design and be more proactive in the way that we think about and serve our customers? And the word I was looking for was customer experience. And as soon as I found it, this beautiful concept and the power that was inside of it, I just consumed everything that I could, and still am, still on that high, just in terms of how incredible this force of nature is around. How can we design something remarkable for our customers, be proactive in the way that we engage them and learn from them, take in their voice of customer feedback, and ultimately become more intelligent in our cycle of production of new services and products. And also, in terms of the employee part, and I know we're going to talk about that a lot on this podcast, Greg, but really anchoring all of this, the experience first is the one inside of the organization that extends outward as a gift to the customers. Right. And I was always a huge culture person, always a huge team builder type of person. So the fact that CX combined the thing I love around customer service and the thing I love around culture building and team building and into this one role, really, this idea of a chief experience officer, it thrills me to no end.
And it's interesting you say that, and it's something that I've been a part of for years, is we have to first start serving, and the key word serving, our colleagues as customers and treating them that way. I had a vice president years ago in the mortgage banking industry say there is no such thing as the internal customer. We're all partners, and we all serve the external customer, but we still have to serve our partners. And that's absolutely critical.
Yeah. And that's the way that we should be thinking about it more and more. I mean, it's amazing how powerful it is. And Simon Sinek has some great language around this in terms of creating a tribe internally that's protecting one another. We don't win with the sharpness of our swords. We win with the strengths of our shields as we create a circle of safety around one another. As soon as you have a competitive environment internally, where you're having to watch your back from your own peers, you're not going to be able to focus any energy at all on the actual competition outside of the organization. So much of your mental energy is going to be focused on self-preservation. So when we can excel beyond that and start to think about how can we work together to do something amazing for our customers and for our communities, that does really all start with great teams.
Right. And that in turn drives the culture, which then in turn drives the customer's experience, which comes back, and then we get recognized. Then whether it's outward recognition or inward recognition, we start to feel better about everything, and it's a snowball effect going uphill in a positive way, if you will.
An uphill snowball, that would be a thing to see.
Yeah. Well, tell me about this. Why is it? We've touched on it a little bit here, but why is the employee's experience so critical to the customer experience?
Yeah. I mean, think about how shallow of a pursuit it is if an organization is always talking about what we are doing for our customers, and we're creating these unique experiences for them. We're making sure that we're listening to everything that our customer says. But as soon as you as an employee has a thought or suggestion, it's almost disregarded because your voice isn't as loud as the customer, or you don't feel as though you're being taken care of in the same way that you are being expected to take care of your customers. That's going to burn anyone out. And it's going to feel very superficial of we've created this artificial experience for our customers that we ourselves don't really know how that feels. And a person can't have real empathy in that situation. They can't over time sustain the quality of work that should be there. So what we need to do is really create that authentic experience internally that can be given. I mean, Denise Leon says it best. It is a gift that we can equip our employees to be able to give to our customers. But until they have it, until they experience it for themselves, there's nothing to give. It's all fake.
Interesting. I like the expression, it's all fake. So if an organization is struggling and they've got employees, or maybe just one or two employees who are hitting that burnout stage, or what I sometimes refer to as capabilities readiness level 3, where they're just burned out. They've got knowledge, but they've lost the will to really deliver that service.
Yeah.
What are some things that management and leadership groups can do to really revive that and really drive that customer experience to the employee, so the employee then is revitalized to deliver that experience to the customer?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of pulse surveys and understanding the state of your culture and the state of your employee through good, very relevant, timely feedback through a series of pulse surveys. So I love using Office Vibe. Tiny Pulse does it. There's a Qualtrics version of it. But having something like that in place so that you're not making assumptions about where you really are at culturally as an organization, because I think leaders generally view themselves more optimistically than what the reality is. And they tend to make positive assumptions about how good the organization really is performing in this area of culture and team building. So take that veil off, take those rose-colored glasses off, and look at the organization in an unfettered view, and have the courage to do that. That takes a little bit of courage. But once you really know, and you can be able to say, wow, we have a systemic culture issue where the majority of our employees are disengaged at some level for some reason. Or you can know, as you said, Greg, we have some outliers and we have some detractors here. And we need to understand the impact that those detractors are having, and we need to restore them. But that clarity, that understanding is what comes first before you dive in and try to make any actions or activities. But then it really is an issue of restoration. If you have a systemic culture issue where the majority of employees are identifying as detractors and are disengaged, I mean, it's time for a major overhaul. I had to do it with my bees this morning. Hive 1 was infested with hive beetles. I had to take that hive apart, put it out in the sun to kill the hive beetles, and put them in a smaller box, the good brood that was still left, put them in a much smaller box so that they could rebuild and create something stronger and better. But I knit them together in a small, strong tribe and got the stuff out that had to get out. That is what the organization would have to do. And it's tough, it's terrifying, but there is a major change that would need to happen to build the desired culture, the culture that's going to allow you to propel forward, because you can't move forward well, not over the course of time, if you're just limping along in this area of culture and strong teams. So that the faster you can rip the Band-Aid off, the better. But if you have these couple of outliers, these individuals who aren't quite jumping in, they're sitting on the fence. It's time to push them off the fence, hopefully towards the house where everybody's living in together and they have this great atmosphere inside of the organization there together. Or they've got to be pushed towards another house outside of this organization that they can thrive and be happy in, and having the courage to do that. But first it's a matter of restoration. What is it that would allow you to engage the best? What are the roles and responsibilities that help you to come alive? What are your greatest strengths? How can I, as a leader, unlock those for you and not focus on your weaknesses? Let's focus on what you're really good at. Are you still motivated by the unique purpose of this organization? And if you're not, then we need to guide you to a place where you can be motivated intrinsically.
a financial advisor consultant, Dan Sullivan, says, if we focus in on our weaknesses, we'll have strong weaknesses.
That makes a ton of sense right there.
Doesn't it though? So I want to hit a couple questions on what you just talked about there. First is the poll surveys. How often do you recommend doing them?
Yeah, I mean, so the way that like Office Vibe as an example would work, the employee selects the cadence. It's either once a week or every other week that they get a pulse survey to their mobile device or just their email address. And so it's either once a week or every other week. That allows you to identify if there's an event in the organization that occurs. What is it that people feel about that? What impact did that event have on the organization? You can actually be able to see and measure that to some degree in real time.
Okay. So that works really, really well. And again, some of those polls that you like to use, you said Office Vibe. What are some of the others to make sure listeners can get those?
Yeah, Tiny Pulse is great in this area. And then I don't know the name of it, but there is a Qualtrics internally focused employee pulse survey version as well that I'm sure would be an easy Google.
Okay. Again, you're talking about making decisions sometimes that are not real pleasant to do. And you use the example of pushing them off the fence, pushing them to the other side. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that they're not necessarily a good fit in this group.
That is exactly right.
Okay.
There are unique cultures inside of every organization. And another Denise Leonism, let's not think about the organization as a family, because with a family, even if you don't like someone, you still have to love them and you're stuck together. Like you're there, you're going to end up having to figure it out as a family. It's more like a very high performing sports team. So, I mean, you have an incredible camaraderie, you have phenomenal relationships inside of a winning sports team that's well managed, and everybody has a clear role and they're performing at their highest level. And the intoxicating idea of winning together and everybody performing those roles and the synergy created from that's what a great organization looks like. But occasionally there's somebody that doesn't fit the culture of that team or can't perform that role. And a great sports team, they're going to make that tough decision. They're going to trade them.
And that's key, is recognizing and being able to make those decisions is key. So what is the greatest attribute that somebody can bring to a team, either in general teamology, if you will, I guess that's a word I made up, teamology, or in the CX environment? So
the strongest attribute of a team, was that the question, Greg?
Okay. The strongest attribute a person or persons can bring to the team. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you'd agree. I mean, any great team starts with trust. and trust is the bedrock that any person can bring to a team. I mean, John Pompey, my boss at Officium Labs, he's incredible with this. He's like, I'm going to extend the benefit of the doubt to you. I'm going to trust you until for some reason I'm proven that that's not what I should be doing. But like, I am going to trust that you want to serve this organization really well, and you have all of our best interests at heart. And he really does extend that, and you feel that. And of course, what he gets back is great performance. and that trust is reciprocal. So, I mean, a person who can extend that trust and not be stuck in that mode of self-preservation and just always feeling like they have to create a knowledge silo around themselves to protect themselves, or that they're always having to be weary of their coworkers at every turn. If you can have a team where that trust is earned together, and people extend that vulnerability, and you have those courageous people that are able to trust inside of that team, and then others pick up on that vibe, and suddenly everyone together is trusting one another. I mean, Simon Sinek, Kim Scott, Patrick Lencioni, the greatest team building authors of our time, they talk about how trust is the bedrock of any great team, but it starts with the individual.
It absolutely does. And you brought up a key point, because you said that your boss there at Officium, he extended that level of trust outwardly from the very beginning. Yeah. Now, I think you'll agree, there are some people who will do that. I, for one, am one of those people. I will trust you until you give me a reason not to. Now, there's also a lot of people, though, who will not trust anybody until you give them a reason to trust.
Yeah.
So how do we find that? That's a catch-22. That's a push, give, take situation.
Yeah.
How do we get those people engaged and get them to open up a little bit more? Is there something that other people can do? Is there something a leader can do? What do you recommend there?
I mean, the executive team is generally going to set the tone and the culture in this area. You know, if they are able to trust and extend this level of vulnerability, if not everything they do is perfect, if they're willing to express some mistakes made and some different things, and expect that, you know, trust is going to be given of I'm gonna do everything I can to make this better. I'm gonna fix this. Then employees take the cue on that. It's like, you know, it's okay if I fail intelligently. If I fail the same way every time, then something's wrong here. But, you know, if our executive team can have trust to one another, that they don't have to do their jobs perfectly, or they don't have to cover up mistakes, then that sends a powerful message throughout the ranks of the organization in terms of, wow, we can be ourselves here. We can take some educated chances. And if we fail intelligently, it's okay. I don't have to hide that. I don't have to protect myself from my peers. I've learned. I have learned. And therefore, even in my failure, I have won. And therefore, the next attempt I make is going to be better and smarter. And this organization will be better for it.
Now, you bring up some great points, and I agree with everything you're saying. My question is, let's assume that we're now in a management role and you're interviewing somebody who's coming from another organization.
Okay.
You don't know their level of trust.
Sure.
And how do you bring that into play? How can you find out? How can you chat with them and get that in an interview process?
Yeah. I mean, I like to just see how somebody is putting themselves out there. And not every organization is going to be looking for these just open-hearted, incredibly gregarious, very extroverted people. Yeah, a lot of great organizations, that's not the culture that you've created there. And in even those attributes right there, that's not necessarily any measure of the quality of a person. But what I'm not saying is like somebody who just, you know, is just foolhardy in terms of rushing in and just trusting everything that's going on and just being super excited about all the weird stuff that's happening. That's not the kind of person I'm talking about. The kind of person that I'm talking about here is the person who is willing to put themselves out there to serve their community in the type of ways already that the organization wants to serve the community. I mean, that's somebody that you can trust with your mission, with your unique calling as an organization. You can trust them to want to do that well because they're already demonstrating that in their lifestyle out into the world, and the types of interactions that they have with people, that's already the way that they represent themselves. That's going to be more telling in terms of that level of intelligence that you can gain around a candidate, which you can by asking the right questions and just probing into the types of ways that they serve and understanding what matters to them. Where do you spend your time? Even beyond your working hours, what matters to you well? And if you can line up those motivators with the type of work this person is going to be doing, you've found a great fit for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can line up the motivators of what really gets people going and why they do it. And of course, that goes back to someone you just mentioned a moment ago, Simon Sinek, and starts with why. Yeah. Once we find out why people are motivated, what stimulates them, and we find out if that's going to be a good fit within our organization. There are sometimes that's something that's more of the gregarious type that you or I might not fit very well in some organizations, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
you know, those are the things that we have to recognize.
Yeah, somebody could be perceived as being trusting because they express their opinion a lot. That's not the same thing. You know, no. They might be expressing an opinion very contrary to the type of culture and the type of environment that you're trying to build inside of that organization. So it's important to identify more than the way this person behaves and acts. It's identifying what matters to this individual. What are they going to fight for? What are they going to protect? And are those the same things for us as an organization?
Right. And when we stop to think about what what they're doing, and you used a keyword a little earlier as well. You talked about vulnerability trust. Of course, that's a keyword that Patrick Lencioni uses.
Yeah.
It's not just predictive trust, it's vulnerability trust.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings me to the question is, how can you get that, okay, from the customer experience officer that you are?
Yeah.
How can you get that peer-to-peer experience level going? What do you do? Give me some hard examples of what you've done to get them to be able to build that vulnerability trust peer-to-peer.
Well, it definitely starts by listening together as an organization. You're listening to
so
one
you
another.
As the leader have to make sure you're listening.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, even at the peer-to-peer level. So I mean, active listening is taking place.
Okay.
As expressions are happening, as people are working through challenging situations together, and there's opportunities for you to work better together. Somebody has the ability inside of the organization to express when they're sad or frustrated, or if things aren't being optimized in terms of that working relationship, they can express those opinions and they can be respected for that. And adjustments when appropriate can be made. I mean, that is a high performing team right there. If feedback can be given, punches aren't having to be pulled, and people are doing that respectfully, they're doing it regularly in a timely fashion. I mean, that's where trust comes from more than anything else, is that I know you, I care about you. I can tell you when something's going on, and I know that I'm safe to do that, and that you value what I'm expressing to you, and you're going to do your best to make this scenario better for both of us.
Right.
That's where trust comes from at the beginning.
And that trust starts to lead into builds better open communication. I mean, you start with the open communication, the active listening. It starts there. And then when people feel that they've been heard, then even if their decision may not be the one that's chosen, then they will more than likely still be a stronger, committed individual. Am I right with you on that?
They've been respected. They know that their opinion was valued, and they understand because it was explained to them why maybe another choice was made. But even in like an interpersonal level, like if it just really, really bothers me, something about our working relationship where it's distracting or it's not leading to the best possible outcome for the customer. I mean, it's very rare inside of an organization that somebody would truly be able to express that. And that this person wouldn't just get really upset about it and immediately start bad mouthing that person to their peers. And then you get the knife stabbing going on. I mean, culture just deteriorates.
And it doesn't take long to deteriorate.
No, I mean, it's an incredibly high performing team. If I could give you, Greg, feedback on something that I truly feel like you could be doing better in our relationship, in your relationship with your peers, and your relationship to our customers together, if I can give you that feedback and you take that in and really think about that and value that and respect me in that process, man, that is, and it's the same thing with customers. If we can listen to our customers and we can make adjustments and value them and respect them in that process of getting to know them and furthering that relationship and developing that partnership, it's the same thing here.
Now, what if, this is a hypothetical, what if you're giving me feedback and I'm not taking it well? I feel like you are, in your words here now, pulling the knife out on me. You're not, but I perceive you are.
Yeah.
What's happened? What's caused that? And it may be very early on, or it may be something that's happened. What's caused that?
Well, I mean, if you're in an environment where you aren't aligned on the things that matter. I mean, this is going back to what we were talking about before, Greg. If you're working inside of a high performing team where people are aligned on the things that you're trying to do as an organization, you are uniquely serving the community, you're serving the world in a way that no one else can. That gives you a common ground on which it would be appropriate when and how to offer up some feedback. If somebody is holding back the group from accomplishing that objective, they'd want to know that because we care about what we're doing. And if I am somehow holding that back, then I need to know, and I'm going to be hungry to understand and to learn how I can perform better inside of this wonderful organization. But generally, that's not the way it's perceived. That's not the way people think about it because they're not aligned. They don't care that much. So as soon as I start
they're
giving
saying,
feedback,
I'm here to do a job. Shut up, leave me alone.
yeah, like just get off my back. Like I'm going to do this how I want to do this. And the feedback is being perceived as personal. You don't like me. You don't like this thing about me. And I'm just going to want to push you away. Just get away from me. And you're going to want to try and isolate that person and protect yourself by getting the tribe around you and isolating that other person. This is human nature. This is just what we do. And it happens immediately. But a great organization that is aligned and cares more about what you together are trying to accomplish than these individual things, then people are going to know when to give feedback because it really matters. Because it matters to this macro thing. Not because I don't like that you drink coffee in the morning and then have to go take a bathroom break for 20 minutes. I'm not going to give you feedback on that because that doesn't matter to this overall mission up here.
Right.
I mean, there's so many petty things that people obsess over because they're not focused on what really matters. So if we together are focused on these things that matter, then you're going to give feedback that matters. And people are going to see that, they're going to respect that, they're going to respond well. So before you're saying a word to a coworker, why is it that I feel like I need to say something to this individual? Am I protecting a customer in this? Am I assisting the organization to continue to foster the great culture that we have? Or is this just something personal with me? And if it's just something personal with me, you probably don't need to say it.
Right. But now if it is personal, if you're giving me feedback and you're giving it to me correctly, okay, whether you're a peer-to-peer or a supervisor to subordinate, it doesn't matter. And I'm taking it personally. I'm not necessarily going to acknowledge it's a personal thing. I'm still going to push the blame back on you. What can you as a manager then start to do, or you as a peer start to do to bring that culture back together?
Yeah, I mean, it's alignment. It's focusing people back on the things that matter. Okay. It's helping, it's giving them skills. I mean, people need to have communication skills. you might have some people that really care and really have great focus on the things that matter, but their ability to communicate in the day-to-day sucks. And you got to help that individual to know.
Can you say that again?
That it sucks. And there's great education out there. I used to be a trainer inside of UL around the area of effective communication. There's great tools and capabilities to equip individuals in this area of communication skill. So once you've got some of that going, and you'll know, you know as a leader when it's a communication issue, or if it's bigger than that, if it's a motivation issue, if it's an issue of people not caring or just having no respect for their coworkers, that's deeper. And that's going to be harder to work on, but you still can.
So in the world of the pandemic, and I'm not sure where Officium is, but with so many people working from home and the ability to work from home, the different news stories about people now like, hey, I'm done. People are moving. They know I can do a job almost anywhere.
Yeah.
So how are you able to keep people, motivated, keep the culture alive, keep the people stimulated, keep the communication lines up? How are you able to do that through this environment we're in today?
Yeah, Officium is very, very good at this. We've got great leadership with Scott McCabe and with Jonathan Schroer, who really are very intentional about creating meaningful work and accomplishing something special together. And I think that more than anything is what unifies individuals regardless of where they are in the world. And we do have people all over the world, in the UK, in Sweden, in India, and quite a few folks in the States, but we are very decentralized even in the States. My boss is in Nevada. Our CEO, Jonathan, is out in California, and we've got a good little contingent out here on the East Coast. So the way that we can really come together and find common ground on the things that we're doing is just fostering excitement about our ability to accomplish our mission of, in our case, creating incredible customer experiences. We're helping our customers to win. and we're doing that in a way that nobody else can do. And so we're relying on one another for those capabilities, those unique skills that bring us together as a team, that help us to bring an outcome to our customers that nobody else can achieve in the same way that we do it. That's a glue that's titanium. That's strong stuff. And it doesn't matter where somebody's sitting or what time zone they're in.
It's results driven.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's definitely results driven. I think that, that idea of meaningful work, that intrinsic motivating factor, that's going to be more uniting than anything else. But you do want to, the best you can, just create shared experiences with your people. Give them an opportunity to develop relationship. And we've got a great virtual hub in GatherTown. It's like a virtual headquarter environment, and people can come in there and just hang out. We did a book club in there where we were going through the effortless experience together and learning together. That's another very galvanizing force, is the idea of we're developing together. We're getting smarter together. You're going to really enjoy, you're going to really enjoy getting to do that inside of a cohort of individuals. If you're becoming more intelligent, you're getting new skills that you can use to creatively serve your customers. You're going to be excited together to do that. So that's another thing that we definitely do inside of Officio. So, there's levers that you can pull regardless of how decentralized you are. Think about how you can bring people together with shared experiences, and think about how you can create meaningful work for them, allow them to win together as a team, and then just get them addicted to that oxytocin feeling of serving the community very well together.
You said something, a word there. I want to go back and just make sure I'm clear on where you're coming from using the term. Use the word GatherTown.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that something at Officium?
No, it's just a tool that's out there. Is actually Veronica, same person that gave me the shirt, that introduced us to that. It's just a cool little like 8-bit character game environment where you come in and you can create this unique space for your organization or school or association or whatever. Okay. And people can come in, and what it creates is organic collisions. Because as soon as you come into proximity, it creates organic collisions.
Okay.
Which is what we miss in the office, right? I don't get to run into Gregg when he's on his way to get some tea. And we don't get to have that great conversation we would have had. Well, in GatherTown, if you're surfing around and navigating and on your way to a meeting in one of the classrooms or something like that, you could run into Gregg, and then the video window pops up and you all are talking in an organic collision type of format.
That's impressive.
It is cool.
That is really cool, because the number one thing I've heard over the last year is we don't have those water cooler discussions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a way to create some of those.
It is.
And in the past you've had to say, hey, let's meet at the water cooler and have a talk. Then it's a little more forced. It's not as organic.
Yep.
And that gets to be a little bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit, if we can, about the term tribe. And that's going to be a very popular term today, is getting the tribes together. And then also the brain, and how you mentioned oxytocin earlier, the cortisol levels of the brain, how all that comes out when we're feeling like we're part of a tribe.
Yeah, no, I have been reading 2 books in tandem with one another, Tribal Leadership, and then Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. And it's amazing how harmonious these concepts are. You have the idea of tribal leadership, where if you have a group, and it needs to be definitely under like 150 people, but you've created an environment in which individuals can learn one another's names, learn some unique attributes about them, and truly get to know that person, at least at some level. The closer, the better. but you together form a tribe in which you're somewhat self-sustaining. There's different roles and responsibilities in that tribe. You know who to go to for information very quickly. You know that together, this is what you're trying to achieve. You're held to this standard, or the accountability is happening inside of that tribe. As soon as you go past that magic number of like 150, you can't get to know people. You can't remember things about them. It becomes too big. It's too much like a machine.
I'm surprised 150 is not too big.
Yeah, that's kind of with our brains. We can juggle up to about that number. And you've got the best tribes that are out there in tribal leadership are those where they're so unified, they're so galvanized together that they're protecting one another. They're protecting the outcomes of the tribe. They put the needs of the tribe above their own needs, and magic happens. These are the best organizations in the world that are able to create these tribes inside of the organization that can holistically achieve these phenomenal outcomes. So then in tandem, you got Simon Sinek out here, again, talking about the tribe concept and how our brains used to work and how we had to create these tribes to survive as human beings long ago. And the worst thing that could ever happen to a person is to be isolated outside of the tribe, because you have no protection. You can't rely on others to give you the things that you need or to get the things that you have to survive. So we immediately organize ourselves into tribes for protection. Otherwise, as you mentioned, the cortisol levels just go skyrocketing up. As soon as we perceive that our tribe is out to get us or that we've been isolated, there's about nothing more terrifying in the human experience than that. So we're immediately trying to get back into the tribe or find a different tribe where we can be secured and protected. So yeah, I mean, this is how great teams are built. It's awareness of this concept of we have to create a tribe that can be somewhat self-sustaining, where people can go deep with one another. And then we have to protect that circle of safety, that circle of trust inside of that tribe, because as soon as people drop out or become isolated, the fire starts to burn. Bad things happen.
Yeah. And when you pop a hole in something, more oxygen gets in, the bigger the fire becomes.
Bummer. Yeah.
And that goes back to, if we want to take it back to another simple thought, is Maslow's hierarchy. Getting a sense of belonging is part of that tribe, and it's so important.
Yeah, it all will at some point come back to that hierarchy, and it is very, very true. If we cannot excel inside of an organization psychologically until those needs are met, and until we feel as though we together are inside of a circle of trust, a circle of safety, where we can then look outside of ourselves and not feel as though I'm about to be destroyed. I'm about to get a knife in my back. We have to excel beyond that stage to win the customer experience game. This is why so few organizations are great at customer experience, because they're so focused internally. They're still trying to build that layer of trust and that circle of safety. And they're so focused on that, it's almost impossible for them at any point to start to really focus on how can we knock it out of the park for our customers. It's a great organization that gets to that point.
You've just really hit some key issues all right there when you talk about not letting ourselves get stabbed in the back from our own teams. And that's so powerful. If we were to think right now, what is one of the biggest, or what is the single biggest challenge facing the customer experience service today? What would you say it is?
Short-term thinking. People don't give customer experience a chance to really take root and change the fiber of the organization and alter the culture. CX change is culture change, as Annette Franz says. It takes time for people's mentalities and their everyday behaviors to change in a way that will result in a more favorable customer experience. Most leaders do not have the appetite to do CX well and to do it long enough to where it can truly take root and make a difference. It becomes a quarterly priority. It becomes an experiment that was tested for a couple of months and ultimately failed. They've got to break out of that short-term mentality and think about CX as the thing. There is no finish line. This is what we do to, over time, excel and become the competitive differentiator for us.
It's ongoing.
It is.
And that's true. So if you were to say, how long would it take for an organization to start to see some recognizable or noticeable differences in the culture when they start to do, if they've never done the true CX experiment?
Yeah.
Okay. If you mentioned that they can't stomach it long enough. They give it 3 months and it's not enough. You know that, I know that. If you're talking about an organization that's got maybe 200, 300, 400 employees, not the huge companies.
Yeah.
Okay. How long does it take for something to take where they start to see noticeable change?
Well, if you follow a good change management methodology, and I love John Coder when it comes to CX change, so he's got the leading change methodology. So inside of that, you're beginning by establishing a sense of urgency. You're making the whole company realize we cannot continue on the path that we're on. We can't keep doing this to ourselves or to our customers. And you got to light the fire in terms of we have to make a change. And until people are motivated to do something different than what they have done every day for these past number of years, you're already dead. So there has to be a fire starter moment. What is that? And then you morph into that stage 2 of let's create a CX change coalition that is cross-functional, that includes representation from every part of the organization. And then you get into the actual strategic vision and the communication of that vision and getting people involved and embedded into that change management cycle around customer experience change. So when you do stages like this intelligently using that coder model, so as an example, you earn the right for the employee to take the journey with you to the next stage, because as an example, you started to listen to them differently. You started to do pulse surveys. So no, you can't yet say, wow, we've generated this amount of revenue impact because of our CX initiative. But you've earned the right to go to the next stage, developing a better customer voice engine or employee voice engine, where all of a sudden you're listening more and people start to feel heard.
We had a little hiccup in the video and the line there for a second. We lost you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so you got to earn the right to move people to the next stage of the change transformation. So in the idea of this like leading change model and as a CX perspective on it, I mean, when you start listening, as an example, you start listening well and using like a voice of customer engine or an employee pulse survey cadence, suddenly people are embedded and involved and they feel as though they're being heard. Then you've earned the right to go to the next stage. Okay, let's start to identify those 1 or 2 mentalities or behaviors that we can change together that will result in a better customer experience and start to measure that. Then we start to change these bigger things. It's like spaghetti noodles. You know, you can't pull one of them out in a customer journey that's holistic. As soon as you try to take out one friction point or one problem, you get the whole bowl.
Yeah.
So you got to be really smart about your approach and so that you're not overwhelming people. You're not frustrating them, but you're developing their appetite and showing you're getting some quick wins. You're finding the 1 or 2 spaghetti noodles that aren't attached to the entire bowl and proving to them, we can win. We can make some changes in this area. Then you get to start to eat the whole bowl.
And that's powerful. You know, time has flown by here, Nate. We're just, you and I could chat about this for another hour, 2 or 3, I'm sure.
I think so.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And it's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to chat with you. You know, once a week on the Teamwork Advantage, you learn exactly multiple ideas that you can implement right away. And today was no exception. Nate Brown with Officium Labs shared with us a bunch of ideas that we can start to implement, start to put into place. Starting with short-term thinking, eliminating it, look long-term, see what you can do. One of the first things. Let's start thinking about ways we can do poll surveys. There's a number of things that Nate shared with us today. And once a week, you've got ideas on where you can be. The Teamwork Advantage, we recognize that you are not normal. So don't have a normal day. Don't have a good day. Be sure to make it an excellent and exceptional day. Until next week, we'll see you then on the Teamwork Advantage. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Teamwork Advantage with Gregg Gregory. Be sure to like, subscribe, and activate the bell icon to be notified of future episodes. To learn more about how Gregg can help your organization develop a powerful winning culture, visit TeamsRock.com. That's TeamsRock.com.